Let's get started with the latest episode of the Navigating Disability podcast with my co-host Jen Abbott. We're
Morning,
honored,
guys.
we're honored to be joined by Bereza, a writer, speaker, and advocate whose work has inspired so many. After being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, Alan has used her experiences to fuel powerful conversations about health, resilience, and living authentically. In this episode, we'll dive into her personal journey, the lessons she's learned, and how she continues to make a difference in the world. Get ready for an inspiring and thoughtful conversation with Alan. Welcome, Alan.
Thank you so much for having me.
Wow, what a journey. Where do we start? Because it's almost like a little bit of a before and after.
It's a long story, but I'll briefen it so we don't have to take all evening. Where do we get it? Well, you know what? Let's start here because tomorrow is actually the 32nd anniversary of my father's passing from complications from multiple sclerosis. I was 22 years old when he died, and my mother died 2 years later, almost to the day of breast cancer. So not only have I been an orphan since I'm 24, but 9 months after my father passed, I experienced the first symptom of what I was later to discover was also multiple sclerosis. I was in complete denial because
Yeah.
I watched him from the time I was 10 years old disintegrate for 12 years until he died. And so I was like, nope, not me, not happening to me. So when it finally came to the point where they're like, I had the symptom was optic neuritis, and it's an inflammation of the optic nerve. So I thought, they said, well, 50% of the people that have that go on to develop MS. I'm like, all right, fine. 6 years later, it happened again. And this time they did MRIs and they said, you do have MS. You should really go on the new medications that are out. I was like, yep, no thanks. I was complete denial. And it went on like that. I'm only 4'10". I'm a very short, tiny girl. I worked out with a personal trainer 3 days a week for years. I was fit. I was working. I was a biotech sales executive. I was doing well for 24 years. And I was fine until I wasn't.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, walking became challenging. And finally, and still, I didn't go on the drugs. Um, my when it started getting to the point where walking was an issue, COVID happened, so I could hide it. And so I hid it from my job. But then time went on, my walking became worse. Then COVID subsided. Everybody started getting back out into the world. And the truth was out. And so they took me from my position and they gently nudged me into another role, making less than half the money. And I was miserable. It was awful. The walking was getting terrible. But I had always been fascinated with the mind and how the mind works and the universe. When we first got on the call, you had mentioned I was a writer. Actually, I'm a certified hypnotherapist. I haven't written anything yet, but I will.
Yeah.
I didn't want to correct you, but that's funny you said that because I do want to be a writer. So maybe that was a little
I'm
bit of
seeing it in your
a
future,
you're
Alan.
seeing it. But I've always been fascinated with this stuff. So while I was in COVID and we were all forced to work from home anyway, I went to school and became a hypnotherapist. So when, I ended up going into the other job that I hate, I was miserable. I was being discriminated against. There's no hiding that. Finally, they let me go. And I was like, yes, it was actually because I had a fear of jumping into being an entrepreneur because I had MS. I couldn't really walk that well, among other awful, awful symptoms. And it was a struggle. My life was a struggle. But when that happened, I felt like that was like it was an opening for me to do what I love. And I didn't start doing it in spite of the MS. I did it like because of it. I just got past the fear and said, this is what I love. Am I going to sit back and be a victim and be on my couch eating bonbons all day? Although that does sound kind of cool. But no, I didn't want to do that. I really wanted to just do what made me happy. And that was helping other people. I feel like we're all connected. So helping others help me. And so that's really where it is. I have days where I'm miserable and I can't see going on anymore. But then I'm like, but what about helping these people? What about my children? What about the fun that I can have with what I got going on? I don't have to walk to laugh or to sing or to enjoy my children's smiles, And it sounds really woo-woo and, like, oh yeah, your kids, but that's what keeps me going,
And
you
that
know?
is such an
It's
amazing way to look at it.
yeah.
You you're focusing on the positives and not the negatives. And absolutely, there are negatives. You can't walk, or you can't
Sure.
walk a long way. But hey, what can you do? And I've noticed in a lot of our podcast interviews, everybody's talking about um, their ability, and everyone has abilities. And that's
Right.
exactly what you're saying. One question I had for you about the MS, is MS hereditary?
You know, they say it isn't. They say it's familial, but not really hereditary. To me, I'm thinking it is. I think whatever, I've researched this for years, and what research is pointing to now is that it's caused by the Epstein-Barr virus, but most of the world has had the Epstein-Barr virus, which is the virus that causes mono.
Hmm.
So what they don't know is why some people go on to develop MS and some don't. So back to the whole hereditary thing, there must be some type of genetic mutation or something because my father had it, obviously, and then me. And just recently, about a year ago, my father's sister's granddaughter. So my cousin's daughter was just diagnosed with MS, all on the same side of the family. So obviously there's something going on there.
There's a predisposition. Yeah.
Exactly. And so doctors say what they say. I've been working with doctors for years. They have their strong points, but there's a lot of doctors aren't God and they don't know it all.
Yep.
And we have to be our own advocates and figure things out for ourselves if we want to get better, you
Yeah.
know?
Did you
So,
go through,
oops, sorry,
sorry, Jen.
Kate, you go. No, no, that's all right. I
Did
can
you
wait.
go through a time where um, it wasn't all rosy, where you had to accept your diagnosis to be able to move forward with it?
It was never rosy. It isn't still now. I'm a very high energy person and I'm funny and I would be a comedian if I could, to be honest. So that's why I come across this way. But every day I struggle. Every day I struggle with trying to get into bed, with trying to shower, with trying to do the normal things that people do. I have trouble doing. So it's not rosy. I'm rosy. You know what I mean? So when I get down, and I've never wanted to off myself. But I've often said, I don't want to live like this anymore because I don't. This is not a fun life. But then again, I get back to, well, what can I do to be happy right now? I don't want to sit in this misery anymore. And I'll call a friend or if I can be honest, I'll smoke pot. I have a medical marijuana license. I smoke pot. It helps. It helps with the muscle spasms. It helps with my attitude. If you're feeling angst and then you get high, it's like, ooh, angst is gone.
Yeah.
The symptoms are still there, but I don't feel so shitty about them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I hope you don't mind that I said that. I apologize
No,
for my
no, I
bad
love how
language.
raw you're being with it because I think it resonates with people that will be listening because they do
Yeah.
feel stuck in their circumstance and it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard. But I find myself going back to doing my own program because I know it works. I've seen it work for other people. I'm like, well, can it work for me? Granted, it's not curing me of anything, but it gets me to a level where I can feel better. And life is just a series of moments, right? And you want to feel good in as many of them as you can. So either I can feel shitty or I can choose to do something to feel good. So I will find things that I'm grateful for. I will do breathing exercise. I'm a huge meditator. I'm a big student of Dr. Joe Dispenza. I don't know if you know who he is,
Yes.
but I am a student of his. I've been to several of his retreats and I just follow the work. And it is work, but I do it for myself. You know what I mean? So I constantly bring myself back to what's going to make me feel good right now. And that's what I do.
And how did the diagnosis affect your children?
Well, I was diagnosed in 1999. I didn't have children then. And honestly, even though I was diagnosed, I literally I was wearing 3-inch heels. I was a shot girl when I was in my 20s. Like I said, I worked out with a personal trainer. I was fine for like 26 years with nothing.
Yeah.
And then it started getting bad around 2019, 2020. I've got a really interesting story actually that I should share this with you because
Please share.
Yeah.
I think you're going to really like this. So I used to call on doctors, and I had to go see this doctor's office for work. That's like about an hour and a half from where I live. But I had the next day, I was scheduled to go see an MS specialist to really find out what was going on. I already knew, but I was in complete denial. So I was going to see this MS specialist, had to go to this doctor's office first. So the night before, I'm in bed and I go, and I'm not a religious person, but I said, God, please help me. I wasn't specific. I just said, God, I need your help. I'm going to see this MS doctor tomorrow. I don't know what he's going to say. Please help me. So the next day I wake up and I go to the doctor's office for work to go give a presentation. And as I pull up to the building, I was already having trouble walking, mind you, at this time. So when I pull up to the building, I realized there was nowhere to park. There was a parking garage behind the building. I pull in and I realize, oh my gosh, this is going to be a really long walk. What am I going to do? So I sat there in my car for a moment, freaking out. And then I saw this older man sitting in his truck. So I said, excuse me, sir, can you please tell me how to get down to the offices? He goes, oh, yeah, you go all the way down there, you make a right, you go all the way down, you get in the elevator, you go down to the bottom floor, you walk across the footbridge. And I'm like, I just sat there like, what am I going to do? And he said to me, there was a bunch of wheelchairs around, I guess, for people to cart people back and forth. He said, why don't you get in one of the wheelchairs and I'll walk you over? And I immediately had a flashback to my father, who I watched disintegrate to nothing, who was in a wheelchair. And I said, I don't want to get in the wheelchair, man. I don't want to. And he literally looked me in the face and said, you asked God for help, and I'm helping you. Get in
Wow.
the chair. And I said, okay, okay. I couldn't believe he said that. I got in the chair, and the whole way over there, he's just telling me all these beautiful stories about belief and just, you know, just all these good things. I can't even remember what he said because I was so flabbergasted by the whole thing that he just said. So we get to the doctor's office that I had to call on. And I said, oh my gosh, let me out here. I don't want them to see me getting out of a wheelchair. And I said, well, thank you so much. I don't even know your name. What's your name? And he goes, it doesn't matter what my name is. As I told you, you ask God for help, and it's not me. God is helping you through me. My name is Alan, but it really doesn't matter. And I said, thank you so much, Alan. Thank you for your help. I really appreciate you. And I turned around to walk away, and he goes, hey, he didn't know my name. And I said, yes. And he goes, keep believing. Good things will happen. And then the elevator closed, and I was like, whoo,
So you've
couldn't
just
believe
made
that
me all
happened.
tear, like I'm bubbling now. I'm like,
I always get teary when I tell that story because that shit's real. Like that happened to me and
yeah,
blew my mind. And from that moment on, I'm like, I've got to get my story out to people. I've got to show people that even if you're struggling or suffering, there are people that if you have an expertise in anything, or even if you just have a story to tell, people need to hear it. People need to hear your story because maybe you can help someone else. And when you help someone else, that will always come back and help you. We're all connected, you
yeah,
know? So that happened. Crazy, right?
yeah. So how do you just, watching your dad decline? Because I watched my dad decline with Parkinson's disease, and that's why I think
Oh,
it's so raw for me
that's
when you
even
said
worse.
wheelchair and so
Yeah,
excuse me.
yeah,
So
yeah.
just facing those challenges, watching your family just deteriorate.
Yes.
What went through your mind when you got diagnosed with it, knowing what you'd lived with your dad?
I
How
didn't
did
believe it.
you so there's the form of denial, but when you
Total.
when you accepted it for what it was and go right and facing it, it takes a lot of strength and a lot of resilience. And I think that goes with every diagnosis. So how did you, I know you have your days, but how did you really get through that? Just trying to cope
I
with
don't
it,
know
I
that I
guess.
did.
Sorry, I'm
I don't
just,
think I ever, no, no, please. I'm with you. We could cry all day. Um, I don't think I ever really did. I still have part of me that doesn't believe it because I'm such a, it just doesn't match who I am. I'm like, this can't be, but it is. So I guess it's only been in maybe within the last year where I've surrendered to what is. Not that I'm saying, oh, this is the way my life's going to be, but I've surrendered to, okay, okay, this is what I'm dealing with. So now what?
yeah.
what can I still do? I'm not going to kill myself. I could never hurt myself. And I have children. I could never do that to them anyway. But what can I do when times get tough? What can I do? And what I have found is helping others helps me feel better. When I'm feeling shitty, that's when somebody, I'm in a coaching program right now, and people have been reaching out to me just to talk to me. I think they want to do hypnotherapy with me, but they really, I don't know if they just want free advice. But I find that when I'm feeling bad and I get on the phone with these people and that I'm helping them with their problems, my problems aren't so big anymore because I see that everyone, whether they have a disease or not, everyone's problems are just as big to them as everyone else's is to them.
That is so true.
No? And
Yeah.
so I'm like, okay, I'm going to help you for free. And I got to stop doing that because how am I ever going to feed my family if I'm doing things for free? But I can't help it because I know when people don't have a lot of money, I will give them advice. I won't do hypnotherapy for free, but I will give them advice on, well, what do I do when my energy is low and I don't know how to, whatever, and then I'll talk them through it. But like when they leave and they're like, thank you, then I feel better. So it doesn't seem so yucky anymore.
Yeah. It gives you purpose, I guess, and it takes you out of the dark, I guess. It brings you back into the light for that brief moment.
Maybe that's why this was meant to happen. In some way, I feel like it's all divine. I don't want to say timing, but everything is in the universe's plan in some weird way. So maybe in some way, being sick is actually healing me because I was never happy. I'll be honest. Even though I always come across as happy and funny and confident, inside I was always miserable. I was always second guessing myself. I had self-doubt and I realized this. I put up with a lot of crap with guys. I was so desperate. I did so many stupid things over the years when I was younger. I'm 54 now, but it really took for me to have a disease, for me to come to terms with the lack of happiness and confidence I had within my whole life. So now I do. Even though I'm sick, I'm mentally better because of it.
It's almost
Crazy.
like
That's amazing.
It's almost like there's two parts to you. There's the physical part, which you can't change and you have to accept, and it is what it is. But then there's the spiritual, the emotional, the other side of you, which you absolutely have control over how you want to be and who you want to be.
Yeah, that's yes. And those two battle each other because every time I'm feeling like, yes, MS is like, oh no, you don't. It takes me down every time. And I'm like, why must you torture me? This isn't fair. Please go away. And I guess there's nothing that's fair. My father used to always say that. He's like, life isn't fair. Like this isn't fair. Life isn't fair. And he wasn't wrong because MS lets me know every day who's boss. It ain't me. And it's sad, but I can't control my own thoughts. And that's the only thing that we human beings can control is our thoughts. That's it.
Yeah, our brains are a powerful thing and they can work against us or for us, can't they?
Totally. Exactly.
All the time. It's the strongest narrative. Yeah.
Really.
You mentioned, sorry, Alan, you mentioned something early on about doctors and, how they are medically educated and they have read a lot of textbooks and they are considered the specialists. And I don't think anyone would disagree with that. But I'm a firm believer that the person that's going through it knows themselves and knows what's best for them. And, yes, we need to listen to these specialists, but they don't necessarily know everything.
Yeah. No. And what's sad about that is I think that after, like the MS specialists I'm dealing with, I think they become numb to it. They see so many people day in and day out. It's kind of like, you're just another one. And then they go home and live their lives and they're walking around and living. And I go home and I'm still suffering. Yeah. And the doctor I see now, he's one of the top MS guys in the world. He's in Manhattan. I only live, I'm 65 miles from Manhattan. I live at the Jersey Shore in New Jersey. I don't know how familiar you are. But, he has shamed me by saying, more than once, several times, if you only went on the medication, I said, okay, can we not talk about that? Because I didn't. And that's done. And I can never go back. What can we do now?
Yeah.
What can I do now? And I find that he doesn't recognize, like, I've tried to explain to him how miserable I am on occasion. He'll be like, okay, so what else is going on? What else is going on?
That's all
Nothing,
that's
man.
going on.
Right. That's everything right now. But and I don't blame him because he's tired. I know, at first I did blame him, but then I realized, you know what? He's seeing patients in and day out, patients that are suffering and suffering and suffering. He's got to be tired. He's in his 60s. I'm sure he goes home and he's like, oh, I would pour myself a scotch or whatever if I was him. But so I've had to come to terms with he's only human too. He's not trying to hurt me. But what we need to do as people with illnesses is be our own advocate. The sad thing is, not everybody knows how to do that. They rely on these doctors like the doctors are God and they know. And if they tell me X, I've got to do X. And sometimes doctors tell me things and I'm like, and that's because I've been calling on doctors for so many years and I've seen things where I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not listening to you. But it's we just people have to understand that you have to be your own advocate. No one's going to advocate for you more than you are.
And
They
I
don't know what you're
also
going through.
say
Only you do.
to all our mums out there, trust your gut. Your gut is
Amen.
99.9% right all the time.
All the
Um,
time.
and you've got to really it's a big choice to trust yourself and go up against these specialists. But,
People are
what
afraid.
advice would you give to someone that's tired, that's emotional, that's literally exhausted? How do they advocate for themselves?
They have to declare what it is that they want in their own mind and then conjure up the feelings in their heart as if it's already happened and do that over and over and over again. And when you do that, um, I'm not only well versed in hypnotherapy, but I'm well versed in the energetic principles, quantum physics, actually. Your thoughts send out an electrical signal. Your heart is the magnet that draws events back to you. So if they both work together, that is what helps you to manifest. People think, manifesting is something outside of you. Everything you want is right here, but you just have to match the frequency of it. I mean, and that's like not woo woo. That's physics. I mean, even a tuning fork. If you hit a tuning fork right here at 440 megahertz, let's just say, and you hit a tuning fork next to it that's like 500 and something, and you ding, nothing will happen to that one. But if you have a 440 and a 440 and you're over here and you go ding, this one over here will go bing because frequencies match. They cannot help but match. So if you are feeling low, and your energy's low and you're feeling negative and you're just low on the emotional scale, you have to change your thoughts because it's the only thing you have control over. When you do that and then conjure up the emotions as if it's already happened, it puts you in a different frequency where if you do that before you go to your doctor's office, it sounds woo woo. I know it does, but I promise that it works. If you declare what you want and firmly identify what it is you want, not what you don't. Your brain can't hold conflicting beliefs. What I want, not the reasons I can't have it. This is what I want. This is how I feel now that I already have it. When you go into your doctor's office, you will notice a change in the dynamic between you because you have changed, not that they've changed.
Hmm. It makes so much sense because even in everyday life, you meet people and you have that instant connection, that energy that matches yours. And
That's
then
right.
there's somewhere you repel from them because you're like, oh, I don't get a good feeling. So it absolutely makes sense with what you're saying. Absolutely. I haven't looked at it like that. Yeah, that's
It's such a
amazing.
fascinating topic. I can't stop talking about it because I'm so intrigued by it because it's real. It's not like some people think, oh, that's woo woo. It isn't. I
No.
mean, the biggest minds of the world teach this. Like Einstein used to talk about it, Tesla, like all these really smart-minded people discussed this topic. I mean, it's been shown that the universe is made up of energy, frequency, and vibration. You
And
match the
further
frequency, you'll
further
have.
to that, Alan, I've had that experience with my husband where we went through really difficult times when I had children that were diagnosed and so forth, and we could have quite easily gone our own way. But I did so much work and I changed myself, which somehow changed him. I didn't ask
That's
him to
right.
change. I didn't, but he had to make, I suppose it would be an unconscious decision whether he was going to come with me or he was go so I couldn't focus on him. I had to focus on me. And for the
It's
first
so
time
true.
ever, I'm really, really interested. For the first time ever yesterday, we're buying a car or my son's buying a car, and my husband's away, and he wrote me a message and said, um, because normally he would have to have full control. He would do this, wouldn't have anything to me. He actually wrote 8:01 a.m. Okay, go solo. I believe in you. Now, that is the first time he's ever said anything like that. And my response was, that just made my heart sing. You don't know how much that means to me. That's the first time he's actually ever said to me, I believe in you, Kate. You can go and do this. And, we've been together over 20 years. And that's all because I have changed who I am.
He didn't change. You did.
Yeah. But
And
he's
so
accepted, he's
that's right.
yeah.
That's right. But and that's because obviously he's changing to your frequency because you've raised it up here.
Yeah.
And either he meets you or he
Mm.
doesn't. And I think once you change, everything else will change. Your husband, different synchronicities will happen in your life, opportunities will present themselves, and you'll be like, huh, this is good stuff. You just got to
100%.
keep doing
And
it.
Jen
Yeah.
and I talk all the time. We never would have thought 12 months ago that we would be sitting here talking to someone from America about disability.
Yeah.
Like, we are changing. And Jen, you spoke a little bit before about not kindred spirits, but meeting people and having that energy. We
Yeah.
talk about that quite often. The first
Mm.
day we met, I said to you, have we met before? You're like, no, I don't think so. And that connection has been there ever since.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So, I really love that, Alan. That's the sort of hope that I want to give to our listeners.
I'm happy I could help. If I can help anyone, that, like I said, your listeners are going to hear this and it's going to help them. And that's going to help me too. And it's going to help the two of you.
Yeah.
It's all connected. And if we raise the frequency of everyone we meet by changing our own, it's like a ripple effect, you know? And who knows, maybe we can heal ourselves physically by doing that. I'm not going to stop trying. I know they say there's no cure. That doesn't mean I can't heal myself. Why
But I
not?
think that's the thing, with people that face any challenges, it's like, don't give up. You're always
Right.
going to have those obstacles, but you need to find a way around them. Just don't stop. Just keep trying to
Never
move
give up.
forward. Yeah, and I think
You're
that's
absolutely right.
yeah,
Because once you give up, that's it. You're
yeah.
done.
And
Well, I found that with my dad because my mum was his carer and she passed away suddenly, and my sister and I always said on the night that she passed that we lost our dad that day because he gave up. He was like, "What do I do? I've lost her. She's all I've ever known." And sorry, I'm gonna go again. But it was such a moment when he said that to me, and I'm like, Dad, you've got still so much to live for. You've got to keep going. And the Parkinson's took over. Like within 6 months, we had to put him into care because we couldn't care for him in his own home anymore because we had our kids
Of
and we
course.
tried for 6 months, but he just he lost all hope. And I think that don't lose hope because then it wins. Your disability
That's right.
wins. So yeah,
That's right.
it's a lot. It's a lot.
I wanted to ask, Alan, you mentioned that you chose not to go on medication. Is that is that something that you regret?
Nope. Never. Because I didn't want to. And I don't look back and say, oh, I should have, because I was so strongly against it. At the time, I'm telling you, I was working out, I was living my life. Why would I go on a medication? Because I didn't see where it could take me. And I didn't care because I didn't believe it was real. So I've been asked this before, do you regret it? And I don't. Because who's to say it would even have worked for me? I've been on the medication now. I did finally go on it. 3 years ago. I've only progressed and got worse since. Who knows? And that's why I don't regret it, because you know what? That was a choice I made. You can't have any regrets in this world, because when things happen that seem really shitty at the time, then something else will happen later that makes you look back and say, thank God that shitty thing happened, because now I'm here. In all, you miss your flight, and then you're sitting next to somebody. It turns out to be some dude that you fall in love with and get married. I mean, so many things happen where you're like, this is the shittiest thing that could ever happen to me. And then you look back and say, thank God that happened to me.
The
And that's
beautiful
the reason that happened.
the sliding door moments.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, I love that movie.
Yeah,
Did
it's
you
a
see that
good
movie,
movie.
Sliding Doors? I've watched that movie a million times. I love that movie. I'm glad you brought it up, because now I'm going to watch it again. But it's so true. It's really, really true.
Yeah.
And you can't regret things. You made that decision. That was your call. Who knows? Maybe that was my intuition saying, don't do it, girl. Because the medications have come a far way, long way since then.
Yeah.
So who knows? Who knows? I don't regret it. I don't even want to be on the medication now. I want to just get up and go. I want to go dancing. Can't really do it right now, but I believe that one day I will.
Yeah.
So
I'll go off the medication.
what symptoms do you have now, Alan?
You want to know the truth? Want me to just lay it out there? Because I'll tell you.
Absolutely.
Okay. The number one worst thing is balance. I mean, hands down. Like I'm always on the verge of falling. And I have fallen. Luckily lately, no. But my whole right leg doesn't work. I can't bend my knee, my hamstring, there's no nerve signal getting there. I have trouble holding in urine. I don't have I'm left-handed, thank God, because my right hand, I don't have the dexterity that I did. I can't do certain things with my right hand. It's just like I have trouble getting into bed, getting out of bed, getting on the couch, getting off the couch. Like anything I do is a challenge. I cannot walk unassisted. I have a rollator. Even that is challenging, just to go from the couch to the bathroom. But those are my main symptoms. Is just I thank God I don't have the cognitive impairment that a lot of people get. I don't have a lot of the things other people get. And I think there's a reason for that, because I'm still very sharp. I'm as sharp as I ever was. I just have physical things that I think are a lesson for me in some way to slow down, appreciate what I do have, and share whatever I can with other people to help them.
Yeah.
So
And
that's my
what
deal.
help do you get any help? And if so, what help do you get at home?
Do I get?
Yeah.
Well, this is another crazy story, but my ex-husband is actually my best friend. He helps me with everything. He's very proactive in my life. He's very supportive of me. He helps me like go to doctor's appointments. And we're not married anymore. And people are always like, well, why don't you just get remarried? I'm like, obviously they don't know our situation. So I'm like, well, we don't make it as a couple. We don't. We're very different in a lot of ways, but we both share the same common thing. So I have the support of my ex-husband. And I did go to physical therapy, but my insurance only covers 20 sessions a year. I finished it for 24, so now I'm just trying to meet my deductible so I can do that. American insurance is I'm sure you've heard, our healthcare is not the best. Well, it's just they just rape people. But I do get help, but most of it comes from within, if that makes sense.
Normal. Yep. So do you think that your disability has given you a unique perspective on life?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because if this didn't happen to me, I would have gone on the same way, being just miserable, always having a pit in my stomach, thinking about all the things I do wrong, thinking that nobody likes me, thinking, whatever. I used to think all these crazy things. And now I don't care.
Yeah.
That part of that could be that I'm 54 and I just don't give a shit anymore. Let's be honest. But I think the disease itself has changed my perspective of life.
And what's important, I guess.
And what's important.
Yeah.
And what's not important, too.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's also taken me away from people, meaning people that I thought like, oh, they're my friends. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to be friends with them anymore. I just don't. And I removed the toxicity from my life, and that's helped me get better too, So
yeah, I think something like this, a diagnosis and any challenge in life, really shows you who your friends are.
Yep.
And who shows
up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And my kids have been amazing. My kids are 17 and 14. They're very helpful to me. Yeah, they're good. They're great. I'm glad that my daughter drives now and has a car, so that's awesome. So she goes and does things.
It's
But
helpful, isn't it? I've got a
it
17-year-old
really
year old
is.
with his
And I'm very
license.
lucky. Oh, well, totally. Oh my God. Because before it was me doing everything. I'm like, damn it. Luckily, I can still drive. I
Oh,
can
that's
still
good.
drive, believe it or not. I don't do it all the time because sometimes I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this, but I can, and that's good to know. But it's good to know that I have a good support system and people in my life who love me. And I also think, again, changing my thoughts and raising my frequency had that, I've gotten higher. So I've brought the people closer to me who match it, and the people that don't just fade away, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Who would you
So
say has been your greatest supporter and inspiration along the way of your journey?
my ex-husband,
Your ex-husband.
even though communication wise, it's awful. That's one of the reasons why we can't be married. Um, but he takes action. If I need something, he's there. He'll go do, he'll go get, he'll take me. He's a good person and he's the father of my children. And, we have a good bond in that way. But he's really been the greatest. I'm so lucky. So many women have said to me, you have the best ex-husband in the world. Like, how did you land something like that? You're so lucky. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. But truly, he actually tells me this story often. He's said it to many people. But when we first were going to get married, we were together for 3 years. We were going to get married. He was at a bar with somebody that he worked with, and he said he looked over and he saw this couple that were eating, but they weren't talking. He said, "I'm telling you, that was your parents," because obviously they're both deceased. They both died by the time I was 24. He's like, "I'm telling you, that was your parents. I think that they were there to check up on me and make sure that I'll always do right by you." And he's told me that a million times. He said it didn't look exactly like them, but it looked a lot like them. And he goes, it was weird because they weren't talking. They weren't like on cell phones or anything. They just were like just sitting there eating. They weren't looking. He said they would look at me every once in a while and just look back. He's like, I think that was your parents checking me out. And I
Wow.
was like, cool. Well, and it turned out that he's been my savior,
Yeah.
even though sometimes I hate him. That's why I didn't want to be married to him anymore. But he's the person that's helped me more than anyone.
And
So
you take
it's
you
very
take the
weird.
good parts
Mm.
and
Yeah,
respect him
yeah,
for who he is and what he's done.
Yeah.
exactly.
And that's what
Because he is a
unconditional
really
love
good
does,
person.
right? Yeah, it's
And
unconditional.
that's exactly it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sometimes
Sorry,
the
say
world can be slow to catch up with people with disabilities. How have you
true.
navigated society's perception of you and their biases towards you and your disability?
I get annoyed, but nobody's really biased per se. I find that people are very supportive and loving. What I don't like is that everybody and their mother's reaching out to me with this newfangled thing that's going to heal me. Drink this alkaline water. This one woman got healed. I'm like, oh, so of the 3 million people in the world that are suffering from MS, this one woman drank this water and she's healed, so it's going to heal me. You're not trying to sell me anything, are you? Everyone's trying to sell me their healing modality, and I don't like that. And I can be a bitch about it, and I don't care. I don't feel bad about it. Generally, I'm nice, but I'm like, come on, man. I don't want to buy your snake oil. And that's the only thing that I have found that's annoying. But generally, like if I have been places and trying to, get to the nail salon on my own and I'm struggling with a cane, people are like, oh, let me help you. People are very helpful. I find very loving people everywhere I go. And I can't help but think that because I'm loving, that's why I meet loving people everywhere I go. It all matters what you think. If you're thinking everyone's shitty, then all you're going to do is find shitty people in your life, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely. You're going to draw them to you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel, I don't think I'm biased. Um, when I was at work, I felt that way. But there's another interesting story. I was fired. It's a whole long thing. I won't go into that, but I was fired in June, which turned out to be a blessing because now I could focus on my hypnotherapy. But what's interesting is, like I said, I worked for a biotech company. I just read an article that the division that I was working for, the Medicare or Medicaid, whatever, stopped paying for the test. They had to dissolve the whole division. I would have lost my job anyway. I just lost it sooner than they did, but it gave me time to work on my everything happened in perfect timing. I got to focus more on my hypnotherapy. I found a coaching program that I loved. I started, hooking up with people that were amazing, and then they lost their jobs. And I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that
So,
everything happens for a reason.
right? I mean,
You
it
might
really
not know
does.
about it at the time, but as you said,
Yep.
you'll look back and you'll go, that's why that happened. And it
Yeah.
was the best thing
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah. Exactly. The first week when I was fired, I was miserable. I couldn't believe I was with the company for 6.5 years. I couldn't believe it. How could they do that to me? Blah, blah, blah. And then it turned out everybody lost their job.
Mm.
So it wasn't just me,
But you're
you know.
happier for it
So
as
it worked
well.
out.
It was a
I
blessing.
really am. I was miserable there. I
Yeah.
was miserable. I wouldn't have even lasted let's see, that was June. Yeah, so now they're done. So yeah, that was only 7 months and they're done. The whole
Yeah.
division, not just me, everyone.
And you're absolutely flourishing. You're ahead of them in their journey, in your journey.
I'd like to think that I'm flourishing. My body likes to tell me differently, but mentally I feel like I'm all right. And that's the thing. Every time it takes me down, I'm like, I've got a house to live in. I've
Hmm.
got a beautiful backyard and there's deer back there, and I live by the ocean. I live by Manhattan. I live by Philadelphia. I live in a great, I just think, I really, my kids are healthy. I just constantly remind myself of things that I'm grateful for. And then I don't feel so bad anymore.
Yep.
And in Jen's and my job, we deal with a lot of disability and people trying to get support, and we talk sometimes of, the stories that come through, and we're like, we have nothing to complain about. We are so lucky. We are so grateful. It really
Yeah.
is a
There's
mindset.
always somebody worse off, my friend.
Yeah,
There's always somebody worse off.
100%.
So.
Yeah.
All right, as we start to come to an end, what are some changes you would like to see in the disability world?
For people to be more open and understanding, even if they don't get it, to listen, not to assume, to really listen. And I think that's a problem. So many people are like, yeah, no, I get it. No, you don't. That's like people that don't have children that are like, oh, well, if they were my kids, you know what I would do? I
Yeah.
love that.
I
You're
love
like,
that
do
line.
tell me.
My
What would
kids
you
would
do? Yeah.
never do that.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I've actually had people say that. Well, maybe if you would just tell them, I was like, oh, you think that'll work? Just telling them. You think that's going to stop them from doing that? Okay. Maybe you should come over here and babysit that. But it's the same thing. If people were more open to just understanding that they don't know it all and to listen to the people with disabilities because they have feelings too. Don't just pity people. Don't just feel bad for people. They're human just like you, and it can happen to anyone at any time.
Mhm.
Just be understanding. That's
Yeah.
it.
And kind.
And kind.
And kind.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it.
Is there any final words you'd like to give to our listeners, Ellen?
Oh gosh, it's just know that even when you're having a tough time, be grateful for what you do have. Because even if it's hard to see it, I'm sure if you close your eyes and really think about it, you can find things to be grateful for. And if you focus on what you're grateful for long enough, that angst and that miserableness goes away. You just have to believe, just like that guy Alan told me in the elevator, keep believing and good things will happen.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. Is there any exercise or process that you would like to take, a short one, that you'd like to take the listeners through before we go? And I'm putting you on the spot, so you absolutely
No,
don't
that's
have to.
okay. And I think what I talked about before is very significant and it bears repeating. Focus on what you want. Don't focus on the reasons you can't have it. Don't say to yourself why it will never work. If in a perfect world, if you could have what you wanted, put your focus on what you want and conjure up the emotion in your heart as if it's already happened. Spend time in that feeling as often as you can. If you're looking in the refrigerator, if you're driving, or if you're just sitting on your couch or laying in bed if you're bedridden, focus on what you want, conjure up the feelings as if you already have it. And the brain learns by repetition. Do it over and over. You're getting annoyed. I don't care. Do it over. It's getting boring. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again. Because when you do that and your heart and thoughts are in sync, you will find your husband sending you notes saying, you got this. You will find people coming into your life. You're like, I need somebody that does XYZ. All of a sudden, somebody with XYZ comes your way. You know, I can't tell you how many things I'm going to tell you one more story before I go because I've
Please
been able,
do.
because of doing what I just said to you. I was on vacation with my ex-husband when we were still married. My kids were small. Both my parents were already deceased. I was in my 40s at the time, and I just randomly yelled to the sky, Mommy and Daddy, can you see me? I'm in my 40s. I have a husband. I have children. Do you love me? Are you proud of me? Can you see me? And I really felt the emotions, and I didn't think of why they wouldn't answer me. I just believed. And about an hour later, my son's name is Cash. About an hour later, we were walking on the beach and we were talking about Cash, and all of a sudden we heard a band playing live Johnny Cash. He's not named for Johnny Cash, but the fact that we were talking about it, we heard that. We're like, oh, let's follow the music. So we go to follow the music, and it was like Folly Beach's 40th anniversary, whatever. So we go there, we order a drink, and I look to my right, and this guy has a tattoo that says Marion and William. Those are my parents' names. Right after I screamed that to the sky, I said, thank you. I am not a religious person, but I know that the universe
Mm.
it's a friendly universe. It will always give you what you want, but you have to believe it's possible without any judgment of why it can't happen. That's what I want to leave your listeners with. I don't know how you're suffering, but all I know is when you believe that you can have something different and really put your heart into it, you can have something different.
And on that note, that is a beautiful way to end. Thank you
Mm.
so much, Alan, for your time. It has been an absolute honor to speak with you. And,
Thank you, guys.
I wish you all the best on your journey.
Thank you.
And we will put obviously your details out to our listeners so
Yeah.
anyone can
If they
reach
want to
out.
reach me, yeah, let them reach out to me. I would love
Absolutely.
to help in any way that I can.
This is all about connection. Thank you
It is.
so much. You have a lovely evening.
Thank you,
Thank
ladies.
you,
Take
Ellen.
care.